June 14, 2003, Missoula, Montana. 45-year-old George Davis shoots 7 people in a bar, killing 1. A few hours later, he shoots a cop and tries to flee to Idaho. But Patrolman Jason Hildenstab and Deputy Sheriff Dave Conway won't let him get away.
Well, it was a Saturday morning, and I was scheduled to come to work at 10 a.m., and I had actually come out 2 hours prior to that.
I was on vacation all week that week. I wasn't supposed to be coming in.
10-4 and your current 10-20.
The call came across the radio that an officer was taking fire.
Affirmative, Valley County officer is down.
My first instinct was how can I get there as quick as I can?
So I started heading that way as fast as I could go.
Mile marker 24, 120 miles an hour.
I heard the 911 dispatch center talking about that the person that was doing the shooting was the gentleman by the name of George Davis, who they had been looking for. The 911 center advised us Davis was heading towards Missoula.
When I got to about halfway there, I saw the car
It was a tan sedan, a brown sedan.
come across the center lane and get into my lane, facing me head on. It was apparent right from the onset who it was.
Heading northbound from Trader Brothers. I'm in pursuit.
Fight was on.
Well, I saw a brown sedan coming towards me. I started to slow down, and I'm thinking, is this him? Is this him? At that time, I seen Deputy Conway racing up behind him at a high rate of speed, and I fell in behind Deputy Conway, and we began chasing Davis. So now all 3 of us are traveling northbound on U.S. Highway 93.
Interstate, stay westbound, light traffic, 110 miles an hour.
He had a fast car, and he was actually pulling away from us.
So you don't have the power? I'm just not having the power.
This guy was outdistancing me. Jason asked to pass.
You want me to switch with you? We'll get a straight stretch.
So I yielded and he went around.
After I passed Conway, I reached some pretty good speeds to catch up to him. I probably wouldn't have done it on any other typical pursuit, but this wasn't typical. He just shot a cop, and he wasn't going to get away.
And finally, this guy slammed on the brakes.
This caused us the first initial collision. I remembered looking at his muzzle blast and thinking, I'm dead.
I came around the curve. I was probably half a mile or so behind Jason when this wreck happened.
And I ducked down behind my trunk, and every time I popped my head up a little bit, he would fire another round. And I just wanted to kill him. I wasn't going to let him kill me before I killed him. I left my cover and fired 2 good shots at him. I had a pretty good aim on him. Unfortunately, I did not hit him.
I pulled right up into the middle of it, trying to use Jason's car as best I could for cover. Davis retreated. This time, Davis is getting into his car and trying to drive away.
I just couldn't fathom that he was driving away. We'd just been in what I saw was a pretty significant collision.
So he continued to drive on. Jason's car was obviously out of commission. We ran back and jumped in my car.
We have a report of shots fired that area.
Paper, multiple shots fired. Suspect is now moving again westbound. Highway 12 from 19.
10-4, copy westbound again.
We were still in speeds far in excess of 100 miles an hour.
Units are covered westbound from mile marker 9, westbound towards Idaho.
We came around the corner about a half a mile from the state line.
Does Idaho have anyone in the area?
Idaho's got several headed that way. I'm trying to get their current location.
I see the Idaho State Police officer with stop sticks across the road.
I could see the spikes laying across the road.
They're coming! Idaho just stopped the victim. It's mile marker 2. He's pitting.
Davis went over those, and his car went out of control and then slid sideways in the road. I remember seeing his gun pointing straight at us again.
I could see the shots coming right at me.
I leaned out my passenger window and was able to fire 1 more round at him.
It was all happening in slow motion in my mind. So I just gassed my car as hard as I could.
In the process, I broke my leg, and I had a bunch of glass shards in my eye, and I was kind of taken out of the fight at that point.
I jumped out of the car. As I'm getting out of the car, I'm drawing my handgun. And as soon as my front sight settled on his left eye, both of his hands were up. At that point, I had made the decision that the fight was done. Eventually, we cuffed him. We just had him stick his hands out the window because his passenger side window was broken out. Cuffed him in the front and pulled him out of the car. It was my job to provide first aid to him. That was hard to do. That was one of the more difficult things I've ever had to do, is to go from wanting to kill him so bad that I was willing to run my car into him to providing first aid for him. But that's what they paid me to do.
It was a happiness that, number one, I had survived, and number two, that this dirtball was in handcuffs. I knew he wasn't ever going to hurt anyone again.
Davis received 11 life sentences for his crimes, one of the longest prison terms in Montana state history. Up next, a Miami drug sting turns into a deadly struggle for survival.
We were in a situation where at any moment they were going to kill us.
And later, an Idaho highway becomes a war zone.
Can't believe this guy's coming at me with a knife now.
A volatile situation. Partnered with an informant, the plan is to get the drug dealers on tape and leave with their lives.
Drug deals involving certain groups of Jamaican criminals were notorious for drug rip-offs, and in the process of the drug rip-offs, actually committing homicides.
You guys, you sure you're okay? I mean, feel comfortable here.
And we went ahead and set up what is referred to as a reverse sting, where we sell the cocaine and therefore deprive them of their economic resource, which is money. As soon as we walked into the apartment, I could tell that they were very nervous because they were looking around. I didn't want the two suspects to feel that there was a problem here. I just trying to lessen the tension all the way around. Their shirts were not tucked in, that they were out. That was a sign to me that they were possibly armed.
Huh? There's nobody in the closet, man. It's okay, relax.
If they did decide to go check the closet, that they were going to find the video equipment. And if that happened, then that would definitely escalate the situation.
It's okay. You know, everything's okay.
We had placed a pinhole camera in a wall that was directly in front of the table. The audio was also being recorded, but was being transmitted to the surveillance van, which was out in the parking lot. I immediately indicated to them that I was not armed.
Look, a little bit of fat there, but it's okay. You want to see? It's no problem, okay?
I figured that the best place to put my gun would be in the master bedroom underneath a night table. I'm used to doing a drug deal and having my firearm within inches. The only thing that could possibly go wrong in a situation like that is they had actually pulled out weapons and we were in danger of our lives.
Oh, you have the money with you? Yeah, sure. Okay, let me show you.
I got up, I walked over to the oven in the kitchen, which is where we had the kilo of cocaine, and I placed it on the table and then asked the informant if he would go get a knife.
Do me a favor, get a knife so they can check, okay?
When they started to look at each other and there was that hesitancy, I knew that we had a problem.
It's okay. It's okay. So, there you go.
The person sitting to my left got up and then pulled out his gun. We were in a situation where at any moment they were going to kill us.
Daddy's not going to like this.
As soon as I said Terry is not going to like this, this was a red flag that something had definitely gone wrong inside the apartment. And therefore, the SWAT team to respond immediately.
Daddy's not going to like this.
Normally, I would have expected the SWAT team to be there in 5 seconds.
So nobody's here? Nobody's here. It's just the four of us. Just with these.
They had difficulty finding the apartment. They didn't know where the apartment was. All the apartments looked the same from the back. When I started repeating, Terry's not going to like this, and I saw that nothing was happening, I had to figure out a way to move the situation closer to where my gun was, since my gun was 15 feet away.
Daddy's not going to like this. Hey, look, I don't like this, man. I don't like this. I don't like this. Why you do this? Why? I have no problem.
That's when everything just started to deteriorate. They wanted to tie me up with wire hangers. They were on their way to executing me.
Okay, it's cool, man. It's cool. It's cool. Okay, man. That is not no police, man. No police.
The suspect had taken his eyes off me, and I just braced myself and lifted out my right leg and kicked back as hard as I possibly could. He discharged the firearm. That round went through the window, and that's how they found the apartment.
Give me some cops.
There was some criticism from people within the department that it had not been a successful drug deal. Any drug deal or any law enforcement operation that you can walk away from is successful.
Days later, the drug dealers escaped custody and disappeared. Ordonio went on to bring down some of South Florida's most notorious drug cartels. April 23, 2003, Idaho Falls, Idaho. After a fight with his wife, Daniel Litzenberger speeds onto an Idaho highway, drawing State Trooper Chris Nelson and Bonneville County Deputy Brian Lovell into a deadly chase.
As I was driving home, I heard that Bonneville County was in pursuit of a drunk driver.
The officer that was on the scene, he was giving out the description of a blue and white Ford pickup that this Litzenberg guy was driving.
Bonneville County said that they needed help. I grabbed my vest, my gun belt, some handcuffs. I grabbed everything. So I hit the lights and siren to clear out the intersection. I noticed the pursuit was coming at me. And I noticed he was doing well over 50 miles an hour and he wasn't slowing down. He was coming right at me. So I swerved to the right to get out of his way and flipped a U-turn and jumped in the pursuit.
Sergeant says, okay, you're the second guy in line, start calling the pursuit.
375 or eastbound on Lincoln Road.
It's 5 o'clock traffic. There was just tons of cars on this particular road. There ended up being a couple of other county deputies in behind me and Trooper Nelson.
Litzenberg just blew through the stop signs. I just knew from my experience, you know, you got a drunk driver driving like this, it's not gonna end up pretty good. They're gonna wind up taking himself out or taking someone else out.
He's driving all over the line, he's crossing the center line.
We were traveling at speeds excess of 80, 90 miles an hour. I got this sinking feeling the only place for him to go was out to the reservoir and it wasn't gonna end good.
As we get close to the top of the hill before we drop down into the Blacktail, there's a couple of large 90-degree turns that take up about 1.5 miles to make all the turns. There's a couple spots in the S-curves where I thought maybe he would crash. Once you get down there, there's no phone service, there's no radio service.
And we followed Litzenberg down to the boat ramp area, parking lot, and he pulled his truck right up against the guardrail. And we set up in felony stop position. I can't believe he's gonna make it this easy for us that he just pulled up to the guardrail, kind of no place to go, and stops. I moved from my car up to the Deputy Lovell's car. So I started asking him if he could see inside the pickup. And he said to me that it looked like he had something, but he couldn't tell. And so I started trying to position myself, and we drew our guns and pointed at him and started yelling at him, giving him commands to show us his hands and come out with his hands up. We couldn't see inside the pickup. Pretty soon I heard the engine rev on the pickup and saw the reverse lights come on. Man, he's gonna ram these guys. So I started yelling, look out, he's gonna ram you. And he backed up and stopped and then started to take off again. My thought was, you know, containment. I've got to cut off this guy's exit. I can't let him get out of here. And so I went and jumped in my patrol car and threw it in reverse and just floored it. As I was backing up, looking where I was going, I turned around and looked forward, and I noticed he wasn't trying to get away from me. He was coming at me now. It hit with such force. He was probably going around 35 miles an hour or so when he hit me head on. Both the airbags blew in my car filled with smoke. I remember thinking, holy crap, can't believe this guy just ran. And also thinking, okay, he's elevated it to deadly force now. No sooner do I get out of my car And I look up and he's out of his pickup and he's rounded it. He had a big knife in his right hand, probably a 14-inch knife, and he's just walking at a fast pace. It was almost a charge. He wasn't running, but he was charging at me. I can't believe this guy's coming at me with a knife now. And I started yelling, drop the knife, drop the knife. Just remember pulling the trigger as fast as I could. But I remember hearing every single gunshot go off in my head. I was counting them out in my head as I was squeezing the trigger. And I grabbed the mic and told dispatch that shots had been fired and there was a man down. And we grabbed first aid kits and went to work on him.
He was bleeding from several places.
And I was kneeling down. I had both hands plugging bullet holes, and I was looking at his face. I was looking at this guy, and I was just thinking, man, this guy just tried to kill me. You know, he ran me head on, and then he charged at me with the knife, forced me to shoot him, and now I'm trying to save this guy's life.
This knife that was on the ground ended up being a serrated saw. When it was folded out, it was about, a foot long or so.
Received a fracture on 3 of my vertebrae from the crash. I made a choice a long time ago that if it ever came down to me or someone else, it was going to be someone else.
Due to the quick medical response of Trooper Nelson and Deputy Lovell, Litzenberger survived the shooting and is doing jail time for charges that include aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and domestic violence. Up next,
I need a code 1 ambulance to 11th and Central.
a gun battle rages outside a Kansas City nightclub.
It came down to me going home or him going home.
November 6, 2003, Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City police officer Ed Lamport is writing traffic tickets when gunshots ring out near a local club. Captain Rick Lockhart is monitoring the shots fired call and dispatches Lamport to respond. What the officer doesn't know is that he will soon be involved in a gun battle.
Shot at me.
The start started a few blocks away from where it ended up at Club Chemical, which was a bar that was here that we'd had a lot of problems with late at night. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning.
And as we approached the corner of 11th and Grand, I heard shots ring out. As I'm approaching the club, 2 gentlemen come out in a reflective vest and run out towards my car because he shot at us. They told me he was in a blue Taurus, and as soon as I pulled up and went around the corner, I seen a blue Sable, which is pretty much the same car. He took off. I wanted to catch the guy, that's what I was thinking. We had a short vehicle pursuit. For a few blocks, he lost control and hit a light pole. He crashed out at about 11th and Central. I exited my patrol vehicle, drew my weapon. He opened the door, fired a few rounds at from a assault pistol.
And he's firing at Lamport. Lamport has very little cover.
I returned fire, striking him. There wasn't time to think about it. There's just a matter of seconds between all of his rounds and all my rounds. Thing just reaction.
1 gunshot to the head. I need a code 1 ambulance to 11th and Central.
And it was when he went up to the car and realized that when he checked Madkins, he realized that he had killed Madkins.
It came down to me going home or him going home. I believe the toxicology report came back and said he had alcohol, PCP, marijuana, and I think there was cocaine also in it, in the tox report.
I don't know of anyone who's been involved in a shooting that doesn't have their life changed after that shooting.
It's sad, it's tragic that something like that happened, but I'd rather that I go home than him.
The suspect, Fred Madkins, was pronounced dead at the scene from a single gunshot wound to the head.